Is it me not hearing?
Yeah, we didn't hear you, Jim. I also didn't hear you.
Jim, was that you trying to say something?
Yes, I said I started the recording. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can
Yeah,
hear you
now I hear
now. So, okay, welcome everyone to our Tuesday wallet development and testing session. Arvind, our wonderful front-end developer, will not be here today. He's celebrating and enjoying the Chinese National Day, so he's taken the day off. So he won't be here. So we'll just pick up from there. And I don't have a specific agenda set, but well, actually, I do have a question, um, and I'm not. Uh, it's basically with Event API that Dominic is working on. I was just wondering if anyone has an idea of how that progress is coming on, because that's the one piece that and cost accounting we're waiting on. Anyone have any update on the Event API part?
Well, I know that one PR is ready to be merged. So,
Okay.
and I'm not sure in what are the changes in this PR, but what we are waiting is API to catch up. So now we have API to receive any new block. So but we cannot query for old blocks, like block before that are current that we just received.
Okay.
So that's all.
And it's my understanding, although Dominic is one of the core developers that will be leaving. Um, well, actually, I've
Yeah,
heard
and
two stories. Whether he'll be on in order to complete the event API, either that or he's leaving on the 15th. So I've heard both ways. I'm not sure which one it is.
I'm not sure when it's leaving. Maybe even before that. But K1 will continue the work on events.
Very good. Okay.
And I hope that maybe I will do also.
Oh, that would be tremendous.
Yeah.
Because you're an asset to us, because you're able to explain the technical side of things to all of us, which is very helpful in a way that we can understand. So it helps us get further along. So yeah, thank you. That'll be
I'm
great.
hoping I will do this even more and even better. So
Yeah, I mean
maybe we can
yeah,
maybe we
that'd
can
be great.
offload some of the work as a community. So yeah, I will
Yeah, Gary and
definitely
I
try to.
were. Gary, how do you feel about becoming a RChain core developer? I'm teasing him. I think he stepped away. He's into apps.
If we're stupid to meet for core developers, we're in trouble.
I'm
So
sure that Gary can contribute also. Yeah.
so and then the other piece that we're waiting on is the cost accounting. So I guess they're working on mapping it out as far as what needs to be done, getting a scope of work, and when they anticipate that work will be done. Um, have they been able to get a sense of what are all the pieces to complete cost accounting, and when they think will be done?
Arthur just gave us a presentation and like introduction to all the changes that are needed. So Joe and team will be working on these changes.
Okay.
So and the first thing is to just refactor part of the code, like runtime part of the Casper and then this runtime manager. So that's the first thing to do. So
And when
and yeah.
I was going to say, and when you say refactor parts of the code, what is meant with that term, refactor parts of the
Oh,
code? What actually happens?
refactoring usually means just to write the code in a different way, but to keep all the functionalities. So that's the point of refactoring. So you're not changing the functionalities.
So if, for instance, it would be, say, if it was written in Haskell and you want to refactor it, you would refactor it into Scala. It was written in Haskell, but now you're just writing the exact same thing into Scala.
Okay, I didn't think about exactly that, but yeah, this can also be refactoring. But usually it means you just restructuring code in different way.
Oh, okay. So
you just, for example, you can have a function that uses some global variable, and you can refactor this to function that accepts this as an argument. But or another place you're substituting this.
Okay.
This parameter. So yeah, it's
Gotcha. Oh, I think you're on mute, or I can't hear. Tom. Oh shoot.
We can't hear you, Tomislav. He's frozen. He's probably going to be disconnected.
Is he frozen? I know sometimes it's my computer, but I guess it's Tomislav this time.
what they wanted to do.
Okay, Tomislav, I think your computer got frozen a little bit, so we missed part of what you were saying.
Oh yeah, I noticed.
I think you're back. I think he's back. Yay.
Yes. Bonjour, la muette. Raphaël. Bonjour.
Hello.
Okay. Okay. Well, so they're working on the cost accounting piece.
So this is preparation for changes to cost
preparation.
accounting.
Okay.
So these are not. This is not like a big chunk of work, but for two developers, well, they cannot say exactly now what amount of the work it is, but yeah.
So, but
in a few days we will know.
Okay, so you get. So I just think about dates and timelines. So with this date of October 24th, where say if October 24th is the date where we want everything to be feature complete, and we're moving into the hardening of the network, so we're still a couple weeks out from that. Do you get a sense that within that 2.5 weeks they'll be able to complete the cost accounting?
Well, I'm not sure of that.
Yeah.
for me, it's too difficult to say.
Yeah.
Well, I only know part of.
They didn't. So they didn't give that indication. So we're still waiting on that.
My understanding is that it's time boxed, so that however well or poorly the cost accounting works on the last day, that will be the cost accounting released.
Oh.
For.
Well, I hope not.
Well, I mean, for me, the cost accounting really isn't a game stopper initially, as long as we're doing all the validation. As soon as we want to bring on an exchange or something else, then we have to have cost accounting, which I mean could be, a special deal for each exchange we work with. It doesn't have to be any this way or that way. So the cost accounting is a very difficult problem, and a first approximation would probably work fine, as long as you could exclude players that are malicious.
Let me ask this.
So what they are now doing is they want to split user deploys and system deploys. This is because user deploys cannot throw exceptions, and system deploys cannot throw exceptions, and user deploys can throw exceptions, can have a loop and run all the flow related to this deploy, and they can have different kind of errors, or they can have syntax errors, right? Something like that. So they were discussing how to charge all of these cases. And so I remember that for errors, if you're deploy, for example, if you send something to channel that does not exist, or call the method that doesn't exist, you will be charged for flow limit that you specify in the deploy. Things like that. So I agree with what Jim is saying, that this is now, it's not super important when validators are inside the co-op, but there is some cases that they were discussing that, you know, are preventing or maybe can be problematic when user just deploys something. And for example, one open thing is if you're just deploying some huge deploy, you can do like this can be a way to attack the network. You just deploy something huge on the validator, and you know there is no mechanism to detect this or to prevent this. So there will be open questions or open problems that should be resolved after the mainnet.
Hey guys, Tomislav, I wonder why there's no way to prevent this. We can just put a limit on a deploy size, and the actual execution, if there is an infinite loop, it will be cut by the cost accounting.
Oh yeah. But this is not implemented yet. So
yeah, sure. But
and
seems
this is and this large deploy is not something that is part of the execution, right? Because someone mentioned that, you know, parsing the deploy is also something, you know, who will pay the parsing? So
yeah,
if you're sending 100
that's
megabytes,
why,
yeah, you need to receive
that's
it.
why we need a limit for a deploy size.
Yeah, this is like
but it looks like pretty straightforward. Yeah.
But also maybe you want to upload a song
or our wallet,
or Rafael want to upload some JavaScript application. So
I felt it coming.
You don't want to have a limit, so maybe we can register as some kind of special user that you will say, okay, if I deploy with this public key, I want to be able to deploy larger deploys because I have a register my public key.
Mm-hmm.
Why not just charge for deploys?
Sorry?
Why not just charge for deploys?
Yeah.
No, based on the size.
Not just for execution, but just for the size. Yeah. That's totally makes sense. Whatever you send. But first, you need to send your private, your public key and the flow limit, right? Because as I understood, I think I'm not sure who was talking about this, but after you deploy, after you make a deploy, your all the amount or you specified for flow limit will be subtracted from your account. Oh. And after the deploy will be run, then you will be refunded with whatever left of this execution. So I can imagine that, you know, if you want to charge for deploy size, you must first provide your your wallet information, and then you start the streaming your data.
So it hasn't been talked about in a while, but maybe in Venus, you know, there was the concept of rent, right? And so that was to allow you to store big files, but maybe for a very short amount of time, so you're not getting killed than the deploy costs. But
Oh, I see.
yeah, we haven't talked about that in a while.
And this will not be as a regular deploy. This will be something special, or
Yeah, there'd be like a rent shard or something. Yeah.
I was also thinking maybe we need some kind of a streaming API, because maybe I want to deploy something like a stream. I'm just broadcasting my video, right? I want to do it on the blockchain, but I want to do it in a chunks, right? So I want everything what deploys are giving me, but I want to like do it in the chunks.
Yeah.
With our wallet, to do the initial, putting in the private key and getting a balance of rev in my RChain wallet, that, as far as cost accounting goes, that doesn't seem like that it's very sophisticated. Do we think that the piece of cost accounting that's necessary for just that simple reading a balance would be available, or hopefully it'll be available in cost accounting for us to do that? Do we have any sense of that, if that piece will be available?
You mean to get the balance and related work on events, right?
Well, so say say we're at the end of the Arvin, we get the front end done and we're connected to and the event API is completed, and we want to start working with test rev. As far as for us working with test rev, what elements of cost accounting do we need in order to do basic things like read a balance or transfer 10 revs from one user to the other? We're not deploying contracts or anything like that, so not dealing with flow. It's just basic transactions.
But we're really deploying, because
Oh,
when you're checking the balance, you're really deploying.
that is,
So in that case, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm thinking that all of these things should be really straightforward to do.
Okay.
We can build some. Yeah.
In the collab today at 4 p.m. New York time, we're going to be working on an art object contract where it allows transfer of rights, but always gives 15% back to the owner. And it does this recursively to the original owner of the object.
Nice.
Now, I mean, how do we approach this so that it's most correct? I mean, we can just create persons and work with those persons. But what would be cooler would be to work with Robot to work with the actual Discord identity and transfer our test rev among the Discord identities, which would have be not really secure, but I mean it would have to share our the bot would have to know our private keys, so we wouldn't use our an account that had any amount of money on it. But it's good for demonstration and for test rev. We don't care. We do have a record of who did what.
And then why do you need a private key so that
if the robot is going to act as the person, they either have to be running it locally on their machine or whatever, or it has to be on a shared server where you have to trust the system to not compromise keys. Now, some stuff you can do with the browser app, where you keep keys in the browser. Okay, but a robot can't act on your behalf unless you're in the browser. So I think, you know, people running their own bots is the way it's going to be handled.
Sorry, if somebody's typing, can you go on mute, please?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So I don't know.
Just one question.
Can you guide the work study today, Thomas, or is that too late for you?
Yeah, it is a little late for me. Yeah, and now I have all of these sessions, so yeah, I would rather skip this. So
Yeah.
it's a little too much. But I wanted to ask you about you want to impersonate this user, and do you want to do this online or offline? Because I was thinking that maybe we can do all of these things, but exactly the confirmation can be sent from the user's machine, where you have your private key safely stored. You know, you execute the contract, but the final confirmation must came from like the final deploy or something that you know, the user will do on his own machine. You know, you can do all the execution that is needed, but only
Yeah.
the last.
Like I said, either we have to be running the server on their machine that access them, or they're going to have to trust something on the network.
But you know, we already have something that we need, that we can trust. This is the blockchain network of RChain. So you know what I'm thinking.
But if we're running our own node, we need to have some. You know, we still need to run a service on the net.
Yeah, but the service is the blockchain state. You know, you are watching the state, and I am watching the state, and you change the state in some way that that waits for my input to proceed. So you configure the state in just a way that my deploy with my private key will continue your execution and do all of those things that you want.
Okay, so you're saying that your agents will still run even if you're not there.
Yeah, as a
They're
continuation.
waiting on some conditions, set of conditions. They're listening on, you know, a join of some channels.
Yes, yes. and when you send this information, you will continue. So this is how I'm imagining to be an agent in the centralized network. Because now we have centralized servers, and we are depending on the connection to the server. But in the centralized system, you don't want to directly connect to some server. You just want to wait for some continuation to you know, to trigger your something that you know that no one else can send on this channel. And in this way, you're just a listener.
Some capability.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, if anyone wants to help guide at 4 p.m., let us know if they want to.
I'll be
a better time. Do that. Yeah.
Jim, I'll be there. I'm interested in learning, working
I'm
on.
for someone to guide us on doing the purses. Okay, so that I mean, there's contracts there. We can just use them. It can't hurt. I guess I'm just figuring we're probably going to do it wrong if we don't have a guide. But we'll learn a lot.
Yeah.
I'm also not sure how much.
Essentially, we have to have purse contracts for people to in order to have them participate in the buying and selling of art objects. Okay, we have to have these persons, and they have to be associated with identities. Certainly, we can demonstrate this whole thing without having it supported by robot. So that's an extra thing to make it really work.
But the robot can do also part of the execution, right? To send this to whatever that you need.
Yes.
I'm just thinking you want to transfer some funds between two public keys, and
Well, it's a little more complicated than that, because the art object can actually partially own itself. Okay, whatever price the artist gets initially for the object, okay, in the contract we're working on, 15% of that will belong to the art object itself, used for its own future.
and this object is identified with public key, right? And
Yeah.
consequently the address which holds the tokens.
Let's see. It has a hash. It has a DID, a decentralized object identifier, which allows service discovery, to discover what services it has, what capabilities it has.
I see. So, but yeah, I'm not sure how to relate this to rev address and yeah. Can you just say what do you mean by purse? Because I think that the purse that was previously used is not the same as we're thinking now, or I'm mistaken.
Yeah, I know things have changed, and I know that Dan was concerned, that a contract couldn't hold rev, and that's something that apparently Mike Stay is working on, but I don't think I haven't heard it mentioned as being a requirement for mainnet release.
I'm not sure that I understand the problem, so I cannot really comment.
I'm sorry?
I'm not sure that I understand what is the problem, and
The problem was with the
of the contract
back at Dan's item, but I think two things he couldn't do. One is he couldn't have the contract hold rev value, and the other thing he couldn't do is the contract couldn't charge rev for the services it was providing.
Okay.
Well, those are cost accounting functionality that they're still essentially, that's what they're working on completing. So,
but cost accounting is a level below that. What Jim is saying, I think it's you have your user code and you want to somehow charge something that you are executing. You will pay the execution like a raw execution, but you want to charge something that some your work on top of that, right? Is that
in
correct?
this rights transfer protocol contracts that we're working on this afternoon, okay, we want to when someone purchases rights to the art object, we want to hold 15% of that value in the contract of what they paid for the object. And when they sell the object, 15% goes back to the original owner. So it goes back to the original owner, and when the owner himself sells it, the 15% goes to the art object itself.
So can we
And it has it's a dynamic set of rules that happen as provenance is added to the object. So
I see.
it starts off with the basic contract, which is.
And can we identify the actors, and then can we relate to each actor one public key as a holder of the tokens, and this contract should transfer tokens between these actors, right?
Right.
This is
But
my simple view of this.
Yeah, but if the contract can't supply a private key, I mean, it can expose capabilities.
But your deploy holds. It's really something that you're trusting. So when you sign your deploy, you're really saying that only someone with your private key can do the change to the state. So when I deploy a code that transfer from my public key to your public key, you know this by just by seeing the contract have consensus on the network. You don't have to do any manipulation with and checking of private key.
Okay, I have a contract, and the contract is the artist reserved rights transfer and sale agreement. You can use a standard contract or a custom contract, whatever. Okay, so now I want to get the rights. So I want to get a set of capabilities. So I do something. Get capabilities. Pay 1 million rev. From X art object.
And
So
you will get the channel that you send.
Those capabilities should be guarded so that only I can exercise those capabilities. I can't sell them. Wait a second. That defeats the property rule. In order for me to get property here, I have to be able to sell my rights. And I need to be able to make a derivative contract.
Yeah, so I will send you my private key.
What?
I will send you my private key with the reps, right? And I will send my public key, right? And on this public key, it also you can receive the tokens. And later what you will give me, you will give me contract that can execute only if someone with this public key sign deploy. And this way you protected your capabilities that only I can execute. Only a deploy that I sign with this private key will be able to execute this contract that you sent to me as a capability. So you don't have to check anything. You just, when you receive a deploy, and this deploy is have a consensus on the network, this is done. So I can imagine that this is like a very simple case, but maybe you want to have more complicated contract that, you know, I can exchange my public key with another, and I can transfer my rights to someone else, and you know. But what I want to emphasize is the main concept of if I can change the state, I'm confirming that I have a private key, because all the other validators will not validate my deploy if this is not the case. If I'm changing something that is not allowed.
Well, maybe at
Oh,
one of
can I
the
say-
early, maybe in the Thursday Rolang session, you could criticize what we've, how we try to do this. But I guess you're right. We should be able to do it. It shouldn't be hard.
Maybe I can write some samples because I just you know, speaking on top of my head. So yeah, I will try to first write some examples and then be confident at that time. You know, talking something that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm just what I'm thinking is a bonding contract. In bonding contract, you don't specify any additional private public key. You just make a deploy, and from a deployer ID, the code knows who are you, and you know you will be bonded with exactly this private key that you signed the deploy.
All right. Well, thank you. On the robot front, and I guess Gary's mostly been working with Keybase there, which is pretty sweet and it's private, secure, and all that. But the issue comes up is so many of our use cases involve the transfer of rock, and so we need an Ethereum capability. We need to give Robot an Ethereum capability, and I was wondering if anybody in this call has an idea of what tool set or whatever would be best for us to look at in terms of doing an Ethereum interface. I assume we're going to use Node.js, and
What exactly do you need? I'm not sure that I'm familiar with.
a robot's going to be running under somebody's permissions on their machine, right, or in their browser. One, you know, two cases.
But why do you need?
And we want the
such a-
capability for them to transfer rock. Well, you know, from their own account to some other account. I mean, that's been the need that we've looked at, is transferring. And this has to do with, you know, applications where we're looking at doing pooling and other things. And then there's, you know, working with other currencies generally, like lumens or whatever. And we need that capability to work with other currencies. And, you know, ERC20 tokens in particular is something that a lot of different communities are using. And so there's a lot of use cases for wanting to be able to pay those accounts also with your robot. So your wallet has multi-coin capability. This is just the case where we want ERC20 tokens. We're also going to want the non-fungible tokens for art objects. We want to work across blockchains. basically.
I see. So I just want to refer to what you are saying of this authentication, and so the robot can do all of the work and generate the contract and everything. You know, this is the job what you wanted to do. But this signing of this deploy, this can be done by the user on their own machine. You know, a robot can give you the whole deploy, and it can says, you know, this is the deploy, copy and paste on your another, you know, locally your program where you have the private key, and just sign this deploy, and then paste it back, and you know, execute this like a sensitive.
You're saying that,
or this is like too complicated.
You're saying like we can make an Ethereum deploy in Roland?
Yeah, this is also possible. Why not?
I know that's Greg said that for a while. I never really understood it, but supposedly it's a thing.
Yeah, the signing is not really the problematic. Signing, I'm thinking about on signing to, you know.
Yeah, I guess the signing is a problem.
Well, I was thinking that I will write a sign function as one file without any dependency, not even dependency to protobuf, because when you're signing your deploy, this is the most sensitive thing you can do. Or to lose a private key, but you need to be sure that what you are signing is exactly, you know, the thing you're signing. So
yeah,
you can do it privately, you know, and then when you sign, then you need to transfer this signed deploy to another program that you don't have to trust so much. It can screw you, but not by not you know, pushing this to validator. But it cannot really screw you, just, you know, to steal your private key. So in that sense, maybe we can have these two options. You can safely sign, and then you can just give to the robot to the deploy, or just, you know, have a web page that you can just copy paste, or extension to paste and send.
I mean,
what do you think about that?
An alternative is, you know, is to have a sign by proxy capability, which doesn't actually use a private key at all, but it can only exist if the request was signed for the capability to sign by proxy.
Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah, you can, like, you can, in a sense, you can store your confirmation on the chain, and this proxy can use this as a capability. So you give, for example, 3 signing a day to your proxy that the proxy can use, for example. Yeah, there should be a really good case for object capability, because you're giving someone capability to sign something, or to transfer from your account. Or, yeah, you don't have to store the private key in this case, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing that, I mean, we've been doing a lot of in the collab is Mark Miller stuff.
I watched it just partially.
Where did I put it?
Do you have some interesting points?
Mark Biller, you know, he's the person behind Agoric, and Dan Conley is very deep into Agoric these days. And that has to do with smart contracts, electric rights, transfer protocol, where you have different layers built on the on top of the servers. There's something called a VAT, value added transfer, I believe, and then you have something on top of that. But
You're familiar with this stuff, right, Thomas Love?
Yeah. I'm familiar with like a more like a global picture of this. And I remember one Saturday, Dan was going to this Idris code, which is related to this language that they were developing. So.
right, JavaScript, Jesse, I believe.
No, Jesse is part of the another project. This is
Jesse is a restricted type safe JavaScript designed by Mark Miller for.
But this is not this is something that this guy from K Framework he's working on this Jesse thing.
I guess
you're not talking about this language that Dan writes formal verification in this. You're not talking about this, right?
I think so. I mean, this is the same. I'm talking about the same Jesse that Mark Miller uses to write the smart contracts in.
So they are using Jesse as a virtual machine. Because Dan is also talking about XS, like a subset of JavaScript that is secure. And I'm not sure how this is related to Jesse.
I think this is Jesse.
This is Jesse. Oh, I didn't know that.
It's smart contracts written that are based on Mark Miller model, where you have now this he has physical machines, and then he has VATs, which are environments that trust themselves, and then you have secure communication between them so that they're safe. And then you have the Jesse OCAPs, as I understand it.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt, but it's the top of the hour and I got to run.
Oh,
Okay.
I need to go also.
Yeah.
Now we have a session about pigs. So.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you,
See you.
everybody, for joining us today. So we'll meet back here next week, and Arvin should be joining us, and we'll get an update on how his work is progressing.
And we have the DApp developer group at 2 p.m. New York, and a open work study at 4 p.m. New York time.
Right. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Jim, I think that's, is it 2 p.m. New York or 3 p.m.?
3 p.m.
Yeah, 3 p.m. Okay. So, yeah. And then we can, depending on who shows up, usually it's kind of a light crowd, we can start there on the blockchain project, and then work into the 4 o'clock hour. But here's my thought. Maybe if we spend and once again, depending on who shows up for that hour, spend that time writing up a requirements document, kind of thinking through what are these discussions we had here today as far as what we see this um, what are the mechanics of how it's going to work. So when we get down to start writing the Rolang, we have a document there that we can refer to, that everyone is looking at that same thing, and then we're at least kind of on the same page. So I think because I feel more comfortable of kind of hashing out a requirements document and how we see this thing working, and then once we make that determination, go in and start writing the Rolang code for it. And I'll fire up a Google document, and this will be our first requirements gathering effort, and then it'll reside in the DApp developers folder, or actually better yet in the blockchain art folder, because that, since it's blockchain art related. And yeah, and then we can make a stab at it at 4 o'clock as far as what the pieces might be as far as Rolang. But I think if the more ammunition we have as far as being able to, like for instance Tomislav, or even for Dan or Joshi, say, okay, here's a document, this is our requirements, this is what we're trying to do, and they can and we can communicate, and they can read the document, and they can kind of follow along and see if our logic, if it makes sense. And then what, even better yet, and then we can have maybe little snippets of code. Say, okay, this is what we're trying to do, create an identity, blah blah blah, and here's a snippet of code. Or we want to have the artist wants to transfer the art piece to an individual in a transaction and receive 15, and maybe have a snippet of code. So I think maybe that approach, because we're going to be trying to get recruit help from others, and the better that they can get a sense of what it is we're trying to do, the easier that help is gonna go. So that's what I'm thinking is as far as an approach.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of working in a code document with a lot of comments. Of course, I'm thinking about, stepwise,
Yeah.
agile development, where
we
we create a contract that does right for right transfer, that doesn't do anything. It just implements the.
How are we going to explain this to Eric? I mean, and everyone, and Susie, and Michael Linton, all of those on the call. So we come back on Monday, and we say, hey, we've been working on the Rolang contract, and if it's in a Google document and that they can read and follow along, they're going to be able to follow. But if you pull up Visual Code or something like that, and it's going to be coded and it just has the comment line, I'm concerned that we're going to lose some people, or it's not going to be there are going to be some challenges there.
Yeah, and then on the other side we have monkey see, monkey do, and if somebody doesn't actually see something working, they're not going to believe it, or they're not going to, they're not going to understand it really. So there's, yes, you want the document that explains it and introduces it, and
Hmm.
you also want the stepwise development of it.
Yeah, it's especially since this is as a group, as a blockchain art, this is a first time out. Uh, I think we have to take that extra step on documenting what it is we're trying to do in order that we get buy-in and or get others to understand what it is we're trying to do. Because if the challenge becomes, I'm trying to explain this to somebody else and they can't get it, then they're not ever going to be able to help me figure out what it is, what the next step is.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. If if we have the artist reserved rights transfer and sale agreement,
uh-huh.
okay, and we put that in Chinese, well, that's good for the Chinese. If we
Sure.
put it in Rolang, that's good for the programmers. But
Right.
obviously, it's going to have to be in English. It's going to, this is the agreement we're making, and then and then we're developing code that enforces that agreement.
Exactly. So, I think, and I haven't read through the document yet, but um, it kind of creates what this domain world is,
Yeah.
and it doesn't get down to, this is my hunch, but I can't. It, what so we're working within this domain of artists' rights, and then we're trying to create a specific use case, an example,
Right.
and
And our example is that that anybody can sell this thing, but 15% goes back to the original author
exactly.
or the original owner, but the rights get transferred. So um,
Mm-hmm.
I sell to you, and I keep 85%. Okay, I created the object. The other 15% belongs to the object itself. I mean, that's something that needs to be agreed upon, but that's what I understand Eric wants.
Right. In that certificate, so that distributed object, which now that's in the has a new owner, and as long as that owner uh, has the rights to that object, so they have that 85%, and then so if we just get to that point,
Yeah.
just we
And,
create, yeah.
and we probably shouldn't. I mean, it shouldn't be specific to the 85%.
Well,
In other cases, we're going to keep 85%, and the guy who sold it gets a commission of 15%, right?
yeah,
And we'll have all different cases of different
exactly.
percentages or whatever.
And we have to, and we recognize that there's going to be various other scenarios, but we got to start with one, and the simplest case, and then we create a document, a requirements document as far as what it is, and then we take that and we code it up in Rolang, and we get that to work, and that's the prototype. And then we go, oh, okay, this is how it works, and then we can move on to move on to some of the other possibilities, but at least we've got that foundation of one example that works.
Yep.
Good
And
deal.
yeah, I mean, the most we can expect to do really is define what the agreement is going to be. And we can start looking into which purse contracts we want to use. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them around.
Okay.
I don't know, what's relevant, what's the most relevant at this point.
Yeah.
we want to use a purse contract and hopefully it should be fine. We should be able to use any one. They should be replaceable. One of the things about this eRights protocol is that it's composable and reusable. So
Okay.
we can replace different components of it.
Okay.
And
Well, that
use stuff, components we have to build something new,
okay.
which is very nice property to have,
Right.
and something that RChain has been inspiring too.
Now, are these purse contracts, are these written in Solidity or
Roland,
where there? Oh, so there are some existing Rolang purse
Uh,
contracts that are out there.
yeah, the ones that Mark Miller has are in Jesse.
Right.
They've been
But,
written in Roland.
but we have some in Rolang that we can reference, apparently. Okay.
I had them on Robot at one point. I don't know. Remember
Okay.
the ones I put there.
Okay. Okay.
No, we just have to go to the RChain website or something and look at what.
Okay. Well, I have a sense of what it is as far as requirements gathering, as far as what I think would be helpful when we try to explain it to someone else, whether it's Tomislav at one end or, to Eric at the other end.
Right.
Being able to create something that we can say, share up on the screen, say, this is what we're trying to create, what we're trying to code up. And then, and so, okay, well, so I'll see you later on today, round 3, and we'll pick up our conversation there.
Very good.
All right. Have a great day, guys. Talk to you later.
Bye bye.
See you guys.